Welcome to the Nevis newscast for Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021. I am Fredicia Liebert. A third COVID-19 related death has been recorded in the Federation according to the St. Kitts and Nevis COVID-19 Situation Report number 453. The first death was reported on June 17th, the second on June 21st, and the third on June 22nd. As at 6 p.m. Tuesday, June 22nd, there were 27 additional confirmed cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of cases to 377, with 362 in St. Kitts and 15 in Nevis. Meantime, according to the June 22nd St. Kitts and Nevis COVID-19 Situation Report, 289 cases of COVID-19 remain active. The Honorable Wendy Phipps, co-chair of the National Disaster Mitigation Council, recently made an appeal for assistance for persons in quarantine and isolation.
The National COVID-19 Task Force would like to take this opportunity to reinforce what the Permanent Secretary for Social Services has already said in terms of the appeal for donations, care packages, groceries, etc., monetary donations that can be extended to persons in isolation or quarantine. And we remind the public, those persons who are so minded, that all such efforts should be channeled officially through the particular committee of NEMA, which is headed by the Ministry of Social Services under the chairmanship of the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Tafari.
She also reminded that it is imperative that persons shelter in place.
When it comes to persons who are either in isolation or in quarantine, we are advising persons to please, if you're placed under such medical directives by the Office of the Chief Medical Officer, please maintain these requirements, these regulations. We are noting through the compliance department, the compliance committee rather of the NEOC, that persons are assuming that because they might be close friends or relatives of persons who are in isolation or quarantine, that they can visit them because they're nearby. And as the CMO just indicated, these seemingly innocent or naive acts can be to our own detriment. So we are reminding you to do so. And again, to remind persons who do not need to be on the road, please stay off of the road. It will help us to get a better handle on what we are trying to achieve.
A state of emergency has been declared in St. Kitts and Nevis for the period June 15th to July 6th, 2021, in the wake of a new wave of rising COVID-19 infections brought about by community spread.
That as the data unfolds from the Ministry of Health in terms of the changing status as it relates to positive cases, persons who have been deemed fit to be reintegrated into the general population, that by midweek of this week, the COVID-19 task force would have started an assessment exercise in terms of where we are now and developing a basis for various scenarios in terms of what should happen as the positive cases either go up or go down. But we would wish to make sure that we make the necessary adjustments as required so that we can get past the spike in cases and bring an end to this particular episode of community spread.
Co-chair of the National Disaster Mitigation Council, the Honorable Wendy Phipps. The Public Works Department is currently undertaking remedial work on a section of the drainage system on Craddock Road to bring relief to residents of the area. According to Director Javon Williams, there needs to be a mechanism to better channel the water from where the drain left off from the construction of Craddock Road. The work on the drainage system began approximately 3 weeks ago and involved the clearing of vegetation from the gut, cleaning the sides and excavating the gut to line it properly before it was filled and compacted and concrete was poured on the bottom. The drain along the stretch of the gut will be 355 feet in length and 4 feet in width. The concrete drain will end about 60 feet short of the road in order to control the volume of the runoff water downstream. The remaining portion will be dug out and filled with stones. That way, the water will not go through the culvert, and the stone-filled area is expected to act as a soakaway of sorts, Williams says. The work will likely continue for another 2 weeks. A release from the press unit of the Prime Minister says on Tuesday, June 22nd, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris held fruitful discussions with officials of the International Monetary Fund (IMF) during a virtual meeting which focused on the economic performance of St. Kitts and Nevis. The IMF team was led by Bas Bakker, Chief of the Caribbean II Division in the Western Hemisphere Department. He was supported by economist Gonzalo Salinas, analyst Jan Axeli Hocker, Carolina Brozdowski, and analyst Radhika Vishvesh. During the discussions, Prime Minister Harris stated that the COVID-19 pandemic remains the single most significant challenge faced by the Federation. He noted that during these most difficult times, his government has managed to keep the Federation's economy afloat without having to borrow from the IMF or having to make use of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank's resources that are in place to assist COVID-19 affected countries. It was also noted that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis has not made use of the IMF's special drawing rights, which are international reserve assets created by the IMF to supplement the official reserves of its member countries. These accomplishments, according to Prime Minister Harris, are as a result of his administration's prudent fiscal management since it assumed office in 2015. Joining the Prime Minister at Tuesday's meeting were Cabinet Secretary Josephine Huggins, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister Andrew Skerritt, Financial Secretary Hilary Hazel, and Deputy Financial Secretary Sylvia Manning-Gomes. The Nevis Tourism Authority's fourth episode of Escape to Nevis featured the office manager of the Nevisian Heritage Village, Patricia Pat Thompson. During the virtual series, which is hosted by Chief Executive Officer of the Nevis Tourism Authority, Jadine Yard, Thompson gave a glimpse of what takes place at the village and the lifestyle of past times. She also mentioned what persons can expect to see and learn about when they visit the Nevisian Heritage Village.
You can see our goat water pot. You can see our ice cream machine, how we had to churn those ice cream. You can see our mortar and pestle. You hear the story about there's more in the mortar besides the pestle. Then when you come here, you get to find out what is the more that is in the mortar beside the pestle. And I could go on and on. And it talks about the grass bed. We have it here. When you come in, you would not imagine it is a grass bed because it is nicely made, right? We can talk about the hot water flasks and the purpose of the hot water flask back then, and the ice flask and what it was used for.
Thompson spoke about a fact that she stated is not well known about Nevisian history.
One of the points that I made when I do my presentation to my guests is to tell them about the one-room house that a family of maybe 10 or 12 persons had to stay in. And even in the limited space that was there, you still had to make way for a private section for mother and father. And that was divided by a light cloth screen where mother and father stays behind there, and they would sleep on their, what we used to call a jamba bed.
She went on to speak more about Nevisian history.
I talk about the one-room house with so many people living there, and the children would sleep on what we used to call their lodging. And I pause long enough to define lodging, and I do it with a smile. because our yesterday lodging has become today's high fashion. Our parents would not have let us go on the street in tear up clothes. So you have your clothes, you're wearing it, and it tears. Your mother would sew it, and you continue to wear it. Then it tears again, and she put in a false piece, which is a patch, and you continue to wear it. But it tears again. When she go to sew it, there is no place there to put the needle and the thread to hold it. And so you put that to be your lodging. And I'm happy to see that our lodging can be turned into high fashion.
High fashion.
The entire show can be viewed on the Nevis Naturalist YouTube channel. That's it for this edition of the Nevis Newscast. On behalf of all of us here at the Department of Information, I'm Fredicia Liburd. Thank you for viewing.